Happy Monday, Gooners. I'm sure you had a lovely weekend and your Monday has been off to a fantastic start. There's nothing like the Monday buzz after a North London derby win. And don't say we don't do nice things for you, because today's show is going to be epic. Let's rock and roll.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Good evening, good afternoon, no matter where in the world you might be. Thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. Welcome back, my podcast brother from another mother, Mr. Super Kevin Campbell. Kev's frozen in time.
He's missed his cue.
You missed your cue, Kev.
Squaddies! We've got them on.
Oh no, that damn internet of his. I told him to put more quarters in it yesterday. I'm going to keep holding this up. Well, look, welcome to the show, everyone. Super Kev will be back. Here he is.
I've just been doing it for 5 minutes. There's a gremlin in the house. I don't know what's going on. There's a gremlin in the house because I've been doing interviews all day. Trust me, speaking the Arsenal, and all of a sudden, Vic and Dave's on, and it starts to go wonky. There's a gremlin in.
I know it's been my fault again.
I is stuck into it because we've got two great guys.
Amazing. So we do.
All the best.
Go back out and come back in. It's too important. All right. Joining us is
no.
Hold on. Yeah, go out and come back in. What a great start to the show, everyone. Okay, here we go. We have a good friend of the show. You guys know him very well. Author, journalist. I've put the link to his latest article at the top of the page so you can check it out on why we did the right thing not signing Mudryk. He's written books about Geordie Armstrong, the legend. Arsene Wenger, welcome back to Squad Central. You can see his last book right behind me, Arsenal for Everyone, Mr. Dave Seager.
Thanks for having me back. Good to be here.
Now, the other gentleman here, you guys will know and doesn't need any introduction. But you know what? I even wrote one today because what he has achieved is way too important not to brag about. If it wasn't for Vic Akers, there wouldn't be an Arsenal women's team. Founded Arsenal ladies team, managed the squad from 87 to 2009, won 11 FA Cups, 10 Premier League Cups, 11 Premier League titles, 5 League and FA Cup doubles, 4 domestic trebles, the UEFA Women's Cup, 32 major trophies as a manager. He is the reason why the women's football game exists. It wouldn't be where it is today without the trailblazer. Please welcome the most successful Arsenal manager of all time and an officer of the British Empire, Mr. Vic Akers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today, Vic.
Lovely to be with you.
Yeah, I know we're stoked to be here. You know, at the beginning of the show, I put this picture up because it's so amazing. And recently, I wanted to get your take before we get stuck into some of the past. But you and Dave were both at the new art unveiling at Emirates Stadium. And I put this picture up because being recognized, I know how much it meant to you. We had a little bit of a chat on the phone. Kev is back. Welcome back, Super Kev.
I'm celebrating. I'm saluting. I'm celebrating the greatest manager, the most winningest manager in Arsenal history, Vic Akers. There you go.
That is right. Vic, tell us about that night for you, what it meant to be part of that.
For the paintings going up.
Yeah.
On Thursday. Yeah, it was lovely. It was nice to go in there and see some of the old boys and Lee Dixon and David Seaman and Kenny Sampson, which was lovely. Although Kenny's not that well, but he's managing to get himself around and looked quite well, in fairness. So that was lovely. George Graham was there. Pat Rice was there. So some good celebrities all told. Jack Wilshere, one of the more modern day ones, and of course the skipper Martin Odegaard was there, which I had a few words on that with him, which was lovely, and he was a really nice guy.
He's a lovely young man, isn't he? And
unbelievable.
Dave, I know that what it meant to you to be part of it. Super Kev is part of it as well, and I know how much you revere the Arsenal history. You've written some great books about it. Just a good night all around for the Gooner Nation.
Yeah, I just think it was so lovely, but also what really pleased me was there was not a single dissenting voice, objecting voice. Everybody loved everything that was revealed, the way it was revealed. You know, all over social media, there wasn't a single, because normally you'll have the odd, oh yes, it's this, or yes, it's that, it's not this, but there was nothing. It looks like the club, you know, with the supporters have got it absolutely perfect, and everybody, you know, was happy with absolutely everything about the sort of 8 segments. So fair play all round, I think, you know.
And Super Kev, we know how much it meant to you, and we know what Vic means to you as well. We lost you there at the beginning a little bit, but yeah, just so special, and a special time, and a time where I know we've said it a few times, but it really does feel like we have our Arsenal back.
He's gone again.
we got Kev on one of those international delays.
I'll be honest. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Everybody?
Yeah.
Good. You can hear me. So it's about time the club plugged into the past properly. I think that's really important. Some of the more unfavorable people who you don't really get to see and understand, some of these young supporters, Vic Akers has been so instrumental in so many young lads' careers coming forward. Not only his positivity with the women's team and what he's achieved with them, but a lot of the young lads who were coming through at the time were trained by Vic and Pat Rice. This youth team all were trained by Vic at one stage or other, and Pat Rice. And most of these boys, Vic could tell you stories about everybody because Vic's been around the club for such a long time. It's incredible. So to get somebody on with the knowledge that Vic Akers has got, and he could tell you stories about 12-year-old Kev, you know, when I first got to the club.
I'm getting to that,
behind
Kevin.
the ears, green behind the gills. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Green behind the gills. Now that was 14, unfortunately. But
you have the one with the thighs somewhere. I know I do.
You know, needed to be guided, needed to be, you know, get some of the rust knocked off, and you know, needed to be shaped. And it was Vic and Pat Rice who were so influential at the start of my career.
And Geordie.
David Illier will say the same. David Illier would say the same. You said many others, Michael Thomas, although the conveyor belt is there. Vic Akers has had his hands on it, and look at the success he's had. So it's great that he gets acknowledged on the Emirates. I think it's superb, and many other people who's involved as well, players and people connected with the club, supporters clubs. I just think it's a fantastic plug into Highbury.
Yes, very nice of you to say so, Kevin. Thank you.
So Vic, before we get to some of those stories, because we do want you to, you know, the listeners want a little bit of dirt, just a little bit of dirt. You arrived at Arsenal.
Behave yourself.
You arrived at Arsenal, and there was no ladies team. And you know that we have a lot of younger listeners who love the women's team right now. We just saw, you know, we're getting games at the Emirates now. We saw the London derby against Chelsea. When you first started and were building the team, there was no scouting system. I think it was you and on your own, and the women really didn't have jobs. You got them jobs in admin roles at the club and in the laundry and in the box office. Talk us through that a little
The
bit.
shop.
And,
The shop, the shop as well. The warehouse, we had people in all the warehouse everywhere, and it was a lovely time. It was a great time for me personally, although it just added more work to me. But Donnell took me on in those early years, 85, in the community. So I was head of community, and from there we developed certain situations with local people coming in on a regular basis and doing short mat bowls and that type of thing. And everybody, it was a need because we was under the GLC at that time, and obviously football wasn't great in terms of the fans and that. There was lots of problems in sort of crowds and things like that, and it helped make that a little bit more easier, can I say? And that's what we tried to do, was involve people locally, to give them a little bit of respect, and because obviously they were having to put up with lots of things that went on match days that people can't believe, and that's what I was involved in. And Don wanted me to do that. Plus, I would scout for him as well at every game. The weekend, the team that we were playing the following week, I would go and look at and give him a report on a Monday, and it was a lovely time for me in that respect. But we always felt that we needed to add something else to that, and I was fortunate enough to have a young lady working with me who was a female player. Alicia O'Grady, and we got together on it, and a couple of young girls came in, local girls who came from Chapel Market. One was Sarah Ryan, who eventually ended up managing the shop, and the other was Michelle Curley, who went on and played for England. So it was a lovely time for me. Obviously, when they got that sort of recognition, and anyone that got that recognition was great for me. But prior to that, I'd been doing work with Pat Rice, coaching and stuff like that in midweek, and on the weekends we used to have a team, and a young man called Kevin Campbell was part of that group, and his only problem was he loved his bed, and I had to get onto his mum virtually every week to say, "Is Kevin up? Is he okay? He's on his way," and and what a lovely woman she was, and she put up.
I was always on the way, Vic. Come on.
Oh, no, yeah, but we didn't know where you were. But
no, I know. Well, yeah. Well,
you remember that?
It's London.
You remember? I know it was a long while ago, but you do remember that still.
How can I forget it?
Exactly.
How can I forget it? I can't forget it, Vic.
I know that, mate. But again, his career went on, as we know, from strength to strength. And when he was in the youth team, I remember going to the final at Doncaster. Remember, Kev? How many goals you scored at Doncaster and win that final?
Yeah.
You remember that? How many did you score?
Hat-trick at Doncaster, then got the penalty, didn't I?
Yeah,
I remember that.
4 or 5.
Yeah,
I think we won 6 or 7, didn't we? And it was a marvellous, feeling to think you've had some part of that young lad's career, and he's going to go from strength to strength now, and that's exactly what he did. And as Kev says, I did have lots of communication with a lot of the players in that respect. Ray Barlow, Tony Adams, all the boys that were there. Paul Merson was in one of my Sunday teams as well. That's how old I am. So it's a really nice, and I see there Martin Hayes as well. Yeah. David Rocastle, of course, the legend that he was, and it's so sad that he went at the time he did. I mean, I can't believe it. Paul Davis was also at the showing the other night as well, which was lovely to see. Lee Dixon was as well. And it's it's one of them sort of periods that we had such a good time, Kev, didn't we? All the lads, I was right here as well. what a madman he is, and he was the other night.
It's so great because, like, for Dave and I, we grew up as fans, and then somehow we find ourselves in the Arsenal community.
Yeah.
It's really unique, isn't it, Dave, to kind of just to be a fan and listen now to the memories of the stuff that we witnessed then, either, watching on the telly or being, trying to get into the stadium, whatever it was. Just really special, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there's lots of special periods, but that sort of late 80s, early 90s for a fan of my generation, shall we say, was, because I grew up, it wasn't so great in the sort of, in the mid to late 70s, and it got a little bit better, but then under George Graham, it got really good, and I was, in my late teens, early 20s, and it was just a fantastic period, with Kev and Wrighty and Paul Davis and all those guys. It was one of the golden eras for me as a fan, definitely.
Yeah. Vic, just to circle back a little bit, because you start off, there's no women's team, right? No. You kind of, kick things off, and I think it was Marianne Spacey, one of the first players. And then, of course, you got into the scouting, Alex Scott at 8 years old, and Kelly.
Yeah. And obviously we had such, if we were to revert back to that team that won Europe, you'll see now very popular faces in that have made great careers in media as well. You can see in that Karen Carney on the front left, Anita Asante, Rachel Yankee, Leanne Sanderson, there's Kelly Smith, Alex Scott, all girls that have really made such an impact in media. Unbelievable.
And it must feel, you talk about like the impression that Kev talks about you all the time. Our listeners, when they found out you were going to be on the show, just really super excited to hear what you have to say. We try to promote the women's team as much as possible. But to know that if it wasn't for you, that career path for them leading to where they're at now, and so weird, they're making more money now in the media than they were as players winning the quadruples and all these titles and stuff. What does that mean to you personally?
It means a massive amount, obviously, to think that I went from having a team that paid subs to play football for Arsenal Football Club in the outset to what it is today, and the wages that they're on today is obviously far in advance of whatever I would have thought. But that was what our aims were, to make women's football professional, and I can't believe the speed in which it's actually been achieved. I didn't expect it in my lifetime to reach what it's reached already. And obviously the FA have a major role in that, and they have to be commended in that. And from us going from where we went to what we are now, it's unbelievable. I was at the game yesterday, and in fairness, I thought we were the better team in the game. And once we scored, I thought that might be it. That'll be it, 1-0. But you can never write Chelsea off, because they're such a good side, and they got some really outstanding players, one of which scored the goal in Sam Kerr.
Yeah,
it was a good game, and well received by 40,000 people, which is unreal.
It's amazing. It's really, truly. I remember standing on the sidelines as a reporter, and no one cared. Really, it was so hard to just even kind of break through. And I started covering the US women's national team, Vic, around 2011. And even then, Megan Rapinoe was in the side, Abby Wambach, Alex Morgan, Carly Lloyd. And there's me and two other reporters. Now you'd be lucky if you can get your foot in to speak to like Megan or Abby. And it's amazing to see the trajectory of the game. And I've always said the women's game will only succeed if it's also supported by men. Yeah. And I think that in our Arsenal community, we've got really good men who support our women's team. I mean, Wright is one of the best champions.
Yeah.
Kev's always bigging up the team as well. We get a lot of men going to the games. When you were building, did you find resistance at the club at all, or were they all in on what you were trying to do?
Not really. I didn't really find resistance at the club. You used to have the odd comments, obviously from actual friends, really, probably, and who would think, what on earth are you doing? Within the club and everybody there was always very supportive. I mean, my best pal George, who we spoke about, George Armstrong, he was really supportive and really interested in that sort of women's sort of football and the way it was developing and that. And David Dean, obviously, I must speak. David was the real sort of man behind who really got into the board for me and was my sort of passport along that route. And David still supports me now, so that's he's still a good friend.
That's amazing.
He was outstanding for us, and without him, we wouldn't have done what we done. Ken Fryer also backed us as well, very very much. And later on, obviously, we got David Miles, who had worked up to last season, I think, as the head man, and David was also very fond of the women's side. So no, we had a lot of support within, and
right.
The gaffer, especially my old gaffer, he also was very interested in that women's side, and obviously in the role that he's doing now, I think he will encourage the women's side to get more support and within FIFA. So Arsene is a fantastic man, and and one that just sort of shapes football in the way he wants it, and he will be a fantastic support for the girls' game.
Your Arsenal team then pretty much made up the majority of the England team, but you mentioned a legendary name there that Kev reveres and Dave wrote a book about, and Jill Armstrong is a very good friend of the show and has come on as a guest as well. Dave, there are a lot of, to see him on the wall too, and to see Jill pointing to her dad and that type of stuff, and just to be a fabric of the club. Again, that we have a lot of young listeners who love to learn about the history of the club. Just a little note on George, and then maybe Vic can share a little anecdote with us as well.
Well, it wasn't just the Armstrongs who were there. All the Rocastle family were there on Thursday as well.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's not, Arsenal are very good at maintaining relationships with families of players who we've lost over the years as well. So the thing I was interested in with Geordie, not knowing, I knew him as a player. I watched him from the North Bank when I was a kid, but I learned so much on that journey. And obviously Vic and Kevin were both, interviewed, when I did the book. But the one thing that came out, and I think it's a nice segue to what we've just been talking about with the women going on to be successful in the media. One thing that came through in everybody I spoke to about Geordie, and also what he called, and other people would know, and Kevin would know, the Arsenal way or the Arsenal education. It's not just about producing footballers when you're a young lad or a young girl at Arsenal. It's about producing rounded people, and Geordie was, probably at the forefront of that, I would say, from what I learned, and Vic would have been as well, but Kevin would back me up on that. But it's therefore, to me, I think it's almost indicative and obvious that successful Arsenal footballers will go on to be successful potentially in the media if they want to be, whether they're male or female, because they've been brought up and grown up in an environment that encourages personality as well as just great with your feet. That's the Arsenal way, and that's what Geordie stood for, beyond, probably above everyone, I would say. I don't know if Vic would back me up on that, but
no, you're right, correct. Yeah, George was fantastic with the players, and he'd always, make sure that they had, the best that could be got for them. He looked after individuals as well, and spoke with them if they were in the bad times, and he would get like into them and make sure that they were okay, and help them as much as he could, and that's the way he managed as well. And it wasn't easy to manage with the reserve side as well, because the times there, you would end up with maybe 3 or 4 players to coach on that day. Like, it was one of them things as a coach, you never knew how many you had in the reserves. because things would change. The first team would maybe want to take a certain number with them, and you were left with 2 or 3. And George just suffered that. He made sure that them boys that had whatever was going, they were involved in, and he
the younger
with
listeners won't necessarily understand that though, Vic, because reserve team football to us means something. To younger fans, they can't even remember when there was
no, of course not. No,
reserve team football. So that's almost worth elaborating on, I'd say, for some of the younger listeners. The fact that you did play, when the first team was playing at home, the reserve team was playing away to the same opposition.
Yeah.
And the first team players who were injured were playing for the reserves until they were fit.
Yeah.
It's very different today.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, I mean, I can remember. I've been an Arsenal fan all my life. So we were born and bred in Islington, so in Essex Road, and my father used to take me to the games and things like that. And I used to go to reserve games and run from one end to the other end and of the stadium wherever we were kicking, and it was that type of football then. You could do all those things. It's not like now, but there was sort of I don't know what it was. It was a special place, Highbury especially, and I was so privileged that I couldn't believe when I got a job within Arsenal. I thought, my God, this is fantastic. Playing for Islington Schoolboys as a player, and now I'm actually on the staff. Couldn't believe it.
Kev always says, growing up in South London, being an Arsenal supporter, and then you become a player, and it's fun. I just between the two of you, you go from that, Vic, to these moments and these moments, and and then Kev, goes to these moments, and even as a youngster here, and the last time we won a European trophy, this squad, what a special squad. I did have a picture of the 91 squad. I think probably one of the most underrated, under talked about Arsenal teams. Kev, touch on that a little bit too, and then how you first met Vic.
We've lost him again.
Well, I think Vic touched it because, and Dave meant, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with this?
Don't move. Don't move.
These two are taking all the drugs.
It's fine.
What do you mean
You're
don't
okay
move?
now.
What do you mean don't move? I'm not moving.
We said it's fine.
Right.
It's fine.
Vic
Hold the air above your head.
Vic and Dave have touched on some real key points. That when you're young and you're coming through the ranks, you're taught so much football. The duties that you were so important as well. Cleaning restrooms, cleaning the laundry room in between the towels with a toothbrush, cleaning the bus, cleaning the hallway, cleaning boots, going to the JVC where Vic used to run the five-a-sides and all that kind of thing. Everybody used to muck in. And do you know which was probably the greatest thing? We used to wear for the duties the old 1970s kit, the blue and yellow kit. We used to wear the kit to do the duties in. So they all used to be numbered, but it was the obviously FA Cup winning stuff and all that. So you used to think, that means you're part of the club. So whether you're doing the bus, you're shoveling snow, whatever you're doing, you got to do it. You remember who you are and who you represent. Vic, Pat Rice, Terry Murphy, Steve Burton-Shaw, all these guys in the background who a lot of people who are listening probably won't know, Terry Murphy and Steve Burton-Shaw. These guys were instrumental with Vic and with Pat Rice in behind everything to get you to where you... Because let me just tell you something, and Vic will co-sign this. To make it at other clubs is hard. To make it at the Arsenal through the ranks is the toughest. It was the toughest in London. Because Arsenal are the biggest in London, so it's toughest in London. So to see the likes of my peers, like I keep saying, your Rocastle, your Paul Davis, your Rocky, Michael Thomas going through, Tony Adams, Paul Merson, and then lads ahead of me, Paul Smith, Wesley Reed, Roger States, all these guys, Adrian Penn and Russell Milton, all these guys were there before me, and I was the young one. Me and David Ilya, Stephen Ward, great player, unfortunately got injured, didn't he, Vic, at Aldershot?
Yeah,
he was that good. You know, try to give him as much chance to do it, but it just didn't work out for him in the end. But to get there, Soph, and to be successful at Arsenal, it takes a character. It's a certain type of player. You have to be a team player. Obviously, you have to have talent, but you have to have that toughness. You have, because if you don't have the toughness, you won't make it at Arsenal. So to spin it back, as I said, I was green with the Gills. I remember first meeting, I met Vic coming there my first day. I'd never forget it. I met Vic, and Vic talked to me nice and softly, and Pat Rice come in and hammered me. So it was like good. So it was good cop, bad cop. And Vic, at the time, Pat Dolan was helping Ricey do some of the you guys do some of the coaching. So Pat Dolan used to play in the youth team, everyone. So Pat Dolan was doing his badges up. So he was just helping out with the coaching. So Pat Dolan was a lovely lad. So it was like, wow, you know, everybody was together, was tough. Pat Rice was a monster, Vic Akers, but they were on either side, and they were just so good for the likes of myself. They were so good to keep a balance, and you could see why they were so successful in getting lads. Because you know what? So through that reserves, their job's done. Through the ranks to the reserves, it's over to Stuart Houston or Geordie Armstrong or whoever is the reserve manager. Terry Burton was at the time, and before him was Tommy Coleman. But to get us players through the ranks into them, their job's done. Then it's up to the next man. So that was the conveyor belt, and it was tough. Let me tell you, it was tough. Pat Rice, Vic will tell you, Pat Rice was no joke back then. He Melson, but back then Pat Rice was no joke.
Especially if someone had left any dust on the windowsills or anything like that. That was it. They would all cop for it then, because then they had to go over and wash the bus down. If anything went off like that, off you go and do the bus. So the bus was always going to be the last job.
It's a shame that
the younger players today doing any of these jobs.
Dave, yeah.
Can you imagine it? I remember interviewing another old pal of Vic's, David Court, when I did the Geordie book, and he told me in the 60s with the youth team then, they were actually painting the top of the stands without safety harnesses. They were on ladders with black, painting the top of the stands at Highbury. Can you imagine that? Yeah. Without any health and safety. Some young lad, get up that ladder with a tin of paint and paint the roof of the North Bank. I mean, crazy to think about it today.
When the snow dropped, David, and it was a foot of snow on the terraces, all the kids and everybody with shovels, me as well, staff, all out on the terraces trying to get as much as we could cleared. Yeah. Unbelievable. How would you be able to do that these days with the youngsters?
No, you're that far. Someone would sue the club.
Absolutely.
You saw the transition, even for Dave and I in our workplace and what we do is, Gen Xers and stuff, you go through that transition of, we were the guinea pigs on the internet and all that type of stuff. For you, having all the success you did as Arsenal ladies manager, and then you're also the kit man. I've got a couple of questions for you on that as well. You're assisting in so many different ways, and then you go from like your era in the ladies to you got George and Pat and all the people you've talked about. Then you go into Arsene Wenger, who really comes in and modernizes the club. What was that like for you personally, going through the changes, but then also kind of seeing where football was going at that time when Wenger came in?
Well, once he came, I worked sort of about 10 months after he arrived, because I was still doing the work that I originally was in the sports hall and community. But they wanted to change the kit man, and obviously Pat Rice put me up as a potential sort of person to come across. And the gaffer interviewed me, and he said, "Okay, when can you start?" type of thing, and that was it. That was one of the nicest relationships that we've ever had in terms of me personally with a gaffer, and he was fantastic to me, unbelievable, and never ever shirked anything. Whatever I was having to do, he would back it. You know, he said, "What you want to do? You want to do that or this? I'll do it." Okay, and he was always there to back me. And I know what question you're going to ask me in a minute about the kit as well. So,
well, everyone said if you don't ask him about Matthew Flamini for sure, then you'll be in trouble. But why don't we start off with that one a little bit? Cut the sleeves off. Some people, it's the kit man, the role. I mean, I wanted to do a whole show just on that, Dave, as well, because players are particular. Players can be finicky. Players have superstitions. What happened with Mathieu?
Well, we had rules, obviously, as a club, and everybody adhered to the rules. And one of the rules, and it only went out maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that it was dropped because people thought it was a non-event. But me personally, I thought it was historic, and for the club itself, we all backed it, and most of the players did as well. I mean, most of the players stood up for it. But we was at Manchester United, of all clubs, and the rules were that the captain would say was either wearing long sleeve or short sleeve. This day it was a long sleeve, so all the shirts are out long sleeve, and the boys are starting to prepare and get lined up at the door like they do, ready to go out. And I've just looked as they're starting to file out, and I didn't see Flamini with his short sleeves that have been cut off. But once they got out, I just looked in the bin and I see the sleeves that are cut off. So I'm thinking that's one of them. They're already gone out. So I've gone flying down the tunnel and having a look, and my Paul went. He said, "There, it's Flamini. Look, he's got his sleeves cut off." So I said, "Can't have that." I said, but anyway, it went on. The game went on. Played the game. Half time, I got him to one side and I said, "What do you think you're doing?" And I think the captain at the time.
I think Vermaelen was the captain. Was he?
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, might have been. And obviously, he was a nice fella, Vermaelen. All he wanted to do was to smooth it out. But I'm a little bit fiery. Like if people are taking liberties, and they're not taking liberties with me. I'm not worried about that. They're taking liberties with the club because they're the rules. And if you don't have rules, you don't have a club. So we either all stand by it or we don't. And I said that to the gaffer after the game. I said, "Gaffer, at the end of the day, you can say what you like to him, but if it's not going to be adhered to these rules, then there's no point in me trying to keep it going. And if that's what you want, then fine." He went, "No." He said, "Leave it with me. I'll speak to him and get it sorted." And he did. In that week, he spoke to him, and Matthew was a nice lad deep down, and he was, it's just him. That was Matthew. He would want to do something if he didn't think it was right. He would do it, whether it was part of the club or not. That's the rules. No, he would go against that, and sadly, but he got caught out, and that was it. But that's the way of the world, unfortunately. And some people, will adhere to everything. Others won't. But if Patrick had been the captain at that time, he would have had him up against the wall, or Tony.
Or Tony.
I mean, they would have had him hanging up on one of the hooks. So he was a bit fortunate in that respect. It was Thomas Vermaelen.
Vic, are you pleased that we've got a club captain again after this periods of, we got 2 or 3 people sharing the role, or nobody really knew, or Emery, we're going to have 5 leaders in the direct. I mean, are you still one like me that thinks there should be a club captain and a club vice captain, and it's
I think that's part of the makeup, and I think obviously Mikel would know that that's part of the makeup, and I think he didn't have it to put on straight away while he was put first in the post. He had to rethink things and look at it and see who would figure out.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, the Norwegian lad is a really nice guy, and as I say, I've met him on Thursday last, but he seems a really nice fella, and you know, I know all the Norwegian supporters that are viewing in will be delighted that we've got a Norwegian captain, because they were very, very buoyant in my days, the Norwegian supporters club.
Oh, they still are.
And they still are. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, for that sort of reason, you know, that them sort of people will be over the moon. But having met him, I'm delighted to think that he's our club captain, because he comes across as a really nice guy and knowledgeable.
And of an age where he could be captain for many years as well, which is
and he can play.
Yeah. Let's get some questions in. We've got like about 20 minutes left with everyone, so I want to get some questions in which will help you know, with some of the other nostalgic stuff that you guys want to know, with Vic and Kev as well, and of course Dave as well. So Lynn wants to know, do you see characters of George Graham and Mikel Arteta?
Do I see
characteristics?
Characteristics, yeah.
Not really. I think there's two different sets in two different areas of time. The club at that time with George was totally different to what it is now with Mikel. You look at the staff numbers in Mikel's group, almost 20 numbers. In George's group, probably 5 or 6, 7, 8 max. You know, and that was how it was with Arsene as well. And with much smaller groups in staff wise, and now obviously you see everybody and anybody at the games now, masses of staff, and I don't know if Mikel was obviously happy with that. He obviously is, because he would have employed them, but you know, the game's changed in that respect, and you know, whereas you might have only had one physio, you've now got 2 or 3. And I think Kev would back that as well, because it wouldn't only happen in Arsenal, it would probably happen in most clubs now.
Yeah.
Bucket and sponge in your day, Kev, wasn't it? Bucket of cold water and sponge, that's all Kev had.
Yeah, he'd get up and run away as well when the cold water come over.
He's just run away now.
Yeah, he's run away now. Ian wants to know, what do you think about this new thing where players rip the back of their socks? What's that about?
Yeah, I can sort of defend them a wee bit in that, because there are certain socks that you put on, and they are quite gripping, and when that's the case, obviously you are going to cramp up because of the tightness. But we did in my time, we did try to get on to the manufacturers and the makers, that, you know, we put a little bit more room in the socks, because it is a problem, and it doesn't look great either, does it? So but maybe they've gone back a little bit on sizing and things like that. I don't know.
Vic, on the subject of kit then, Vic, tell the fans about when Patrick first started putting the sort of
sport, well done, Dave.
The rest of the team copied it. The rest of the team copied it. So.
Yeah. A lot of them thought, well, if the skipper can do it, I can do it. So, and in all fairness, I wasn't going to argue with Patrick. So,
did he genuinely believe it was going to help him?
Sorry?
Did he genuinely believe it was going to help his breathing during the game, or was it?
Yeah. No, he thought it would come. It would vaporize up, and he would be breathing some of that in, which I can understand, and that's part of a footballer's lives, and if that's the belief, he does it. You know, they all have different sort of situations to work with.
Okay, so this is a popular question from quite a few, so I'll encapsulate it here from Gene. Can Vic share his experience with Arsene George, which you have? The question is, whose tenure did you enjoy the most?
Listen, I've got to go to the dinner again with George shortly, so
is he buying? I mean, is that why George is buying dinner?
I think he might have to after this. No, the thing is, it's a problem that is a nice problem, because obviously I've been so fortunate to be in winning groups. We had winning groups with George, and it's different in nature in terms of working from the back and making sure that the back four, we would always work on that. Was you there then, Kev? You was, weren't you? When we worked on the back four and all the time. And,
cool.
And that was why we were so organised and well set up in that respect. And everybody in that back four or back five, whoever the subs were in coming in, they all knew their jobs, and they were all online with that. And he was very good in terms of doing that, George. Obviously, Arsene came with a different venture. He changed the game in terms of what people drank and what they ate, and obviously he was very, very successful in that period, and winning what we did. And I know George won trophies as well, but I think we won more with Arsene over a bigger period of time as well.
Yeah, both revolutionaries in different ways.
Yeah, in different ways and in different times. That's the main thing that we need to realise, is in different stages of their careers and different times in terms of periods. And 20 years with the gaffer, wasn't it? And I don't know how long George was there for, but
I'll squeeze one in before the next. I'll be curious to know what Dave's answer. I know what Kev's answer is here, but for you, what was what was the most exciting achievement? The 89 at Anfield, the quadruple, or seeing Arsenal go invincible in the Premier League?
I think anybody will delight in the fact that the Invincibles were probably arguably the best set of players that you've ever had at the club. What they achieved was magnificent, and I think any team that went unbeaten through a season would. We can see now, even you look at Man City and people like that, they would have been the only ones probably in this sort of generation that would get anywhere near it. But even they're struggling at times now and losing games and drawing games. And well, we drew a few games. In fairness, we drew more games in that period, I think, when we were unbeaten, the Invincibles, than we've done at any other time. But this year has been a complete transformation in terms of, the way the club and the way the team are playing, and you can only say good things about what's going on at the club at the moment. And long may it last.
Yeah, definitely. Dave, are you an 89 or an Invincible?
I'm a 2002, to be honest. I just love the doubles. I'm obviously, the Invincibles is what it is, and it will never change. But I can't see Lehmann on any circumstances on the same level as David Seaman. The 2002 side, was just incredible for me. So both amazing. But I think to win the league and cup double, playing the football we were playing in 98 and 2002 is every bit as astonishing as the Invincibles in its own way. But they're just different, aren't they? And Vic's right. I don't see anybody doing the 38 games unbeaten. Now I think we'll hold that forever, and it's a lovely thing to have. But I think the football in 2002 are just it's sensational. I love that.
Funny you mentioned forever, Dave. Here's one for all of you from Mark. Which song do you prefer, North London Forever or Good Old Arsenal? We're proud to say the name. While we sing this song, we'll win the game. Just a fun one.
Nice one, Soph. Me personally, I quite like the new song. I'm quite impressed with the new song. It comes across really nice on match days at home.
Yeah.
Lovely. Start with you, Kev, on this one. Demseg wants to know from both of you what you've told us before, but what makes the Arsenal so special? Now the two of you are together here on screen, which we've been trying to make happen for a while. What makes the Arsenal so special?
Exactly this. So
yeah, exactly this. The friendships
yeah,
that we're making
exactly
now,
this.
you know, this is a difference in terms of, you know, being an Arsenal person. You know, you don't matter at what level, you know, you're always in with the big guys, and once you work with them, that's it. You know, you take all that with you, and you know, I've been really fortunate in my time at the football club, and to have so many good friends. I call them all friends, and you know, that I can honestly say that's a friend of mine. You know. And people that have gone and left, and obviously Kev went to further his career elsewhere. But you never lose sight of the fact that Kev was here with us, and we was always good friends then, and we will always be good friends while I'm on the earth.
Well, you're going to have to give us at least one anecdote of your good friend here, your favorite Super Kevin Campbell story. I mean, we don't want you to like bury him in any sense of the word, but we do want to know a little bit of something.
I don't think I've got any bad stories about Kev, to be honest. I mean, you know, I love him as a guy, and I've loved him like that since he was 14, 15 years of age and came to the club, and our friendship started then. And it grew and grew, and it always will stay as it is. We're great friends, and you know, and what an amazing guy, and what an amazing player he turned out as well. And he's had a great, fantastic career, and I'm really proud of him. And I think that's my best thing that I can say about him.
Oh,
I'll tell you one, Sophie.
Oh,
Dave,
I bet
I'll
you
tell
will,
you
Campbell.
one. Hold on, no, I'll tell you one. But this was when I left and I came back. You remember? I came back with Forest, and yeah, we drew the game 1 each, and that was my first. I scored in clock end. I scored in the clock end, and we drew the game. We drew the game 1 each, and after the game, obviously you finish, and you know, I made my way to the dressing room, and Vic was there. And Vic come up to me, and you know, we hugged each other, and you know, Vic just said, "You shouldn't have done that today." I just started laughing. You shouldn't have done that today. You know, it was brilliant. Well, it was a brilliant moment. You shouldn't have done that today, Kevin. Hug me, you know. And it was, but there's. I'll be honest with you, Soph, Dave, and everybody watching. This is exactly how it was when I was 12 years old and coming through the ranks with Vic as a coach with Pat Rice. It was exactly the same. Nothing's changed. And even when I came back with Everton, and I've been on the sidelines with media, every time I've seen Vic, it's been exactly like this. That's what makes Arsenal so special, because we talk about family and all that kind of thing. Arsenal is really a family behind the scenes. Really is. And Highbury encapsulates all of that.
Yeah, you're in a bubble almost, and it covers you and all that are around you. And I think that's the big thing about Arsenal, and that's always the memory that I'll always take to my grave. So it's been fantastic times, and I've had probably arguably the best times in terms of, you know, success at the club and stuff like that. Having great friends like Geordie and that in my life, and that will always live with me.
Do you still see Alex? Oh, go on, Dave, jump in.
I was going to say one thing that will change, and again, and now that it's like an anecdote from the book, really, but I know other people have told this story. When Geordie passed, the club obviously completely closed down, and there was not a single person left in North London. Coach loads, players, staff, and we're talking only two coaches. That's, you know, we're talking 80, 90 people. Now you've probably got 400 or 500 people employed. It's a different scale.
Oh, yeah.
But Tony Adams came up to the players of the 71 who were all, you know, all round where after the coffin was low, and he just said, "I don't think we'll ever have what you guys had, that 71, And I think one of the things that has changed, of course, is that football's become multinational. So, those 71 lads, they were all friends, and they stayed friends from then and because they all lived in the same place and they stayed in the same country afterwards. And of course, and this is not a good or bad thing, it's just different. By 2002 and 2004 now, you'll have perhaps 15 different nationalities in the side, and when they stop playing, they're not necessarily going to be in the same country or be in the same friendship groups, because they'll disperse around the world. So I don't think that what's been described from Kev's coming through and when Vic was involved, I don't think you'll ever quite see that again, purely for that reason, because football's just grown into such a international space in every club in the Premier League. But I don't think you'll ever have that 71 or that sort of 80, 87, 89 type camaraderie again, potentially, for that reason. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I just don't think it's quite the same in the modern era. I don't know what you guys think.
I think they build it different.
Okay.
Like Mikel Arteta, what he's got with the team now, you have to build it different, don't you?
Yeah.
There has to be a belonging. There has to be a connection. We had it automatically. Vic was a gooner. I was a lot of the lads in the team were gooners. So that was automatic. So I think Mikel had to pick players and connect them.
I was thinking more about after the playing career is finished, Kev, the fact the old friendship's sustained.
Yeah, but my point is, it has to be done different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, Dave, if you don't have it when you're playing, you don't have it after.
No,
you have to have it when you're playing to be connected. For instance, our group from 86 to 95, we still have a WhatsApp group together.
Yeah.
Not a lot. Nobody knows that. We've still got a WhatsApp group, happy birthdays and what's going on and all different bits and pieces, which is nice. Everybody's doing their own thing, but that camaraderie is still there.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
Good
so
point.
let's end on Arsenal today. And actually Dave just wrote an article which you guys can read in The Sun about why it was a good thing that we didn't sign Mykhailo Mudryk. Vic, you have seen the game evolve. Kev as well. Money's crazy money. I wanted your take on that side of the game today, and also what you think the Arsenal team can achieve this season. Let's start with this transfer mayhem and chaos and insanity, and clubs like Chelsea just destroying the transfer market, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the rules on those sort of transfer, what budgets that you're supposed to have, but I would have thought Chelsea have gone way beyond that by what this new signing as well. But for him to come up to us, I would have thought he's a young player. He would have probably done okay for us. But I couldn't honestly see where he was going to get in the team immediately, because obviously he's a wide player. We have two of the best wide players in the country at the moment, in Saka and Martinelli. So where would he play? I'm not sure. I don't think you could leave either of those two out, and I'm sure he wouldn't have, certainly in present sort of situations and conditions. So maybe
it's too much to play for someone, as Vic says, who's not going to be an instant first choice.
That's right, and at the end of the day, it's probably maybe a blessing in disguise that it's happened that way for us, and that we haven't got to put our foot in the water to change things around. At the moment, obviously, we may need to help Eddie Nketiah out and get somebody in a 9 situation, even a big person or a big player that that can hold the ball up for you a wee bit. But there are going to get situations where we're going to find it hard, I think, in that respect. Perhaps Kev can come back in the frame and go up there, hold it up for us.
Yeah.
But no, I think otherwise that's I think the game has changed dramatically in terms of finance, and we know that, but there's more finance coming into the game as well, which is unreal. I mean, when I go back to my first sentence, it says, well, when the girls started, they paid to play, and that's where it all began for us and for anybody else in women's football at that time.
Let's close on your thoughts on. And by the way, I wanted to ask you earlier, real quick. Are you still in touch with Alex Scott and Leanne and Kelly?
Yeah.
And
well, Leanne was there on Thursday. Kelly wasn't, but I speak to Kelly quite regularly. Karen Carney I speak to quite regularly. They often.
Rachel Yankee was there, wasn't she? Was she there on Thursday?
Sorry?
Was Rachel Yankee there on Thursday?
Yeah, Rachel was there. Yeah, Rachel was there. I speak to Rachel quite regularly as well. Yeah, a number of those girls that were in that sort of group, and the ones that were there. Sian Williams was there, which was lovely as well, because Sian was one of the early signings. She came from Millwall way back in the day, and super player, played for Wales as well, as well as England.
Vic, I have to ask you this. Sorry, and I'm going to go 2 minutes over. But did you know Maria? Did you have a good relationship with Maria?
Yes, I did. Yes, very much so. You could always hear Maria, certainly more so at Boreham Wood than you would at the Emirates, but you could hear her at the Emirates as well. So, no, lovely person, and travelled with us at times, and was always on an aeroplane going to wherever we were going as the girls travelled in Europe, and a fantastic person. Yeah, much missed.
Excellent. And got to get everyone's thoughts before they go. The Arsenal Football Club, is this the year that we're crowned champions of England again? Who wants to go first?
Ask us on Sunday evening.
Or do we wait until the City game? Do we wait till the City game, Dave?
Oh, we all want it. Come on, we all want it.
Yeah,
that's what we want. That's what we're in it for. We're in it to win it.
Yeah.
The key is whether we deep enough. There's loads of questions that come after. But if you ask us, is it our year? We want it to be our year. The team's doing us proud. It's a long way to go, though. We're only on at the weekend. It's only halfway.
Yeah.
We do need to be lucky now with injuries. Depending on what happens in the next 3 weeks, if you don't strengthen, I do think, if we lost the Thomas Partey or we lost Eddie now, as Vic said, without another number 9 in the squad, there are a couple of things that could happen in the short term that would derail us. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But we know that the club will be working in the next 3 weeks to bring players in. They're not just sitting there on their hands. I mean, it's still 3 weeks to go to the end of the window. So plenty of time.
Quickly, I would just like referees to consider, the players that are on the pitch at times and how many times they get fouled. Saka,
particularly,
Martinelli, unbelievable. I can't believe how many times that they get fouled and they're told to get up. And I think, hang on a minute, he's just got smashed in the back, and what's all that?
There's a bias. Do you think there's a real bias against Arsenal, Vic?
I don't think there's a bias, but it just worries me that people like that keep getting whacked and nobody takes any notice. And if you account up how many fouls it had against Saka on the weekend, it would be almost double figures.
Yeah,
he needs more protection. And someone's just said, if you don't ask Vic this, I'll never forgive you. We haven't asked you what your favourite Arsenal jersey is of all time.
Probably, if I'm looking at it, and probably the one back when we had the game at Liverpool. I really like that shirt. That was a yellow and blue, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yellow, yeah.
Yeah.
The JVC yellow and blue.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
That's the one. Yeah.
It's a great kit.
I really like
great
that.
top.
That was it.
Looks good in red as well.
Yeah. Well, Kev looked good in anything. Let's be fair.
He doesn't age much, does he? Either, Vic?
He doesn't, does he? Hey? I'm so jealous.
Let's hope Adidas. We had an anniversary sort of likening to that one, didn't we? Let's hope that Adidas are remembering that next year is the 20th anniversary next season of the Invincibles, and we have a shirt that is very similar. Or
Mirrors
to that shirt.
Would be nice.
Yeah,
I would like to think they got a thought about that.
I'm sure they have.
Okay, so Vic, we always give our guests the opportunity to give a parting shot, one last word to our listeners and the Gooner universe. What would you like Arsenal fans to know today? What kind of message would you love to leave with Arsenal fans, and then Kev close the show.
Well, I'd love it to be sort of coming up to May or June, and we were 4 or 5 points clear and couldn't get beat. So that would be my best sort of moment, and for this year coming. But let's wish the boys all the best, and let's enjoy what football they're playing at the moment, and because it's special. Yesterday, first half was very special for me. I thought, God, this is the best I've seen the boys play at any point in the season. So let's hope we can maintain that and continue with it.
And hopefully our women can topple Chelsea, right?
And the women maybe get the league again this year. It would be not nice because they missed out by a point last year. So all to play for, and exciting times in Arsenal Football Club. And it's been my pleasure in being with you guys, and especially Kevin, Dave, and yourself. So
it's been wonderful.
And I'll always come on again, but Kev anyway. So it's not
excellent.
a problem.
Excellent.
You're always top man, Vic. Always have and always will be, mate.
Cheers,
always.
mate. Appreciate that.
Always.
Appreciate that.
And Dave, check out Gooner Dave 66 as well, everybody. He's written some fantastic books all about our beloved Arsenal. Check out his column. It's pinned at the top of the show. Mr. Akers. When I first started talking to Vic on the phone, I was calling him Mr. Akers because I'm like, he's a legend. Until he tells me to call him Vic.
Respect,
I'm
respect,
not.
Yeah, respect.
Exactly. So now he's Vic and we're mates, and I love it. I couldn't be happier about today's show. My heart is bursting with just too much Arsenal joy. Super Kev, take us out.
Okay, well, listen, squaddies. I've been wrestling with gremlins all evening, right? But I've got the machete here, and I've sorted him out. So all of a sudden you could hear me. Thanks to Dave. Thanks for coming, Dave. And everybody, get his books, read his articles, do what you can. The legend that is Vic Akers. It's great to see Vic come on and tell some of his stories, because you know what? I think it has to be a inside the dressing room with Vic at some stage, hopefully at the end of the season, so when we've got a little bit of silverware, that would be nice. And obviously the host with the most up there, Sophie, she's the one who fits everything together. And as you know, squaddies, I just turn up if I can battle the gremlins. So look after yourself, up the Arsenal, keep believing in the team, believing in Mikel and the boys, and remember, it's us against everybody else. At ease, squaddies. Have a good one and look after yourselves. Take care.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.